Hey, Brook Scholars, welcome back to Remote Learning with me, Mr. Scott. How are you? It is Thursday, June 4th today. Welcome. Come on in, have a seat, make yourself comfy. Let's see. To begin with, our ABC countdown to summer continues. We are at the letter Q already so soon, and Q stands for Queen or King. So if you have, I don't know, something at home that you can wear and put on, don your royal robes, you may. I don't. I've been through my house. I thought I would have something. There's all types of crazy stuff in my house, but I don't have anything like that. But then that got me thinking about royalty and kings and queens. And I think to be a really good king or queen, it's more about the clothes that you wear, of course. I believe that has to do a lot with listening. If you want to be a good king, or queen, you need to listen to the people around you. You need to listen to them and think about who they are, what they need, and how you can help them. So, in addition to going around and bowing and curtsying and things like that today, and telling people, "Oh, yes, you're doing a lovely job," try to help out as best you can today. I think that's really what it comes down to. You don't need the crown and the scepter and all the rest of that stuff to be a good king or queen. Anyway, let's get into this. At the North Pole, you are going to need today, my friends, some paper and a pencil because we're doing some nonfiction, and I'm excited to do some short annotation work with you today. I really liked this story. It is you could consider it a biography. It is information about a person's life, but it's a particular chapter. So it's kind of imagine this as a chapter or a section from a nonfiction reading. Let me see. We'll have some red color. Oil, very good. Nonfiction. Now, of course, the reason that we annotate is that we are taking short notes to help us remember, help us to learn, I should say, help us to learn what we've learned from that section, okay? So let's talk about the structure of this piece. There are 7 annotations that we need to make. Until the last part of this, each paragraph is its own section, and that section is devoted to a particular piece of information. So the best way for us to think about this is that when you get to the end of a paragraph, you should stop and take a quick note. So that's what you're going to need. If you don't have your pencil and paper, go grab it right now. All right, so let's get started and see what this is all about. It was a cold winter's day. I should read the title. What am I doing? Adapted from At the North Pole. It was a cold winter's day on the edge of the northern ice cap, not far from the home of Nagasaki. A group of men dressed in fur with 2 sleds, each drawn by a team of Eskimo dogs, were going north over the ice. First section or first paragraph in a nonfiction text is usually considered an introduction, and it gives you some information about where this whole thing takes place and something, background information that you need to know. So what I want you to do, smash that pause button and write down your annotation. Pause. All right, we're back. So here's mine. Again, this is not a complete sentence, and it doesn't include all the information that we got there. We just want a few words that are going to help us to remember that this is the section in which we learned this particular piece of information. Mine says, dog sleds pull men wearing fur. That's it. Again, not a complete sentence, but it still has the information that I know I can refer back to later on. Let's read the next one. Section 2. The sleds were loaded with cans of meat, condensed milk, biscuit, tea, sleeping bags, spare mittens, and boots of fur. There were axes, snowshoes, and instruments of different kinds, some for measuring the depth of the water if they should come to open places in the ice. There were also instruments for determining how cold it was, and others for finding out when they had actually reached the most northern point of the earth. Wow. Pause button, write your annotation. Okay, so that section is all about supplies, right? They're listing all of these different things that you would need if you were up at the North Pole. Ooh, it's pretty cold up there. So I put my note, supplies for survival. That's it. It's only 3 words long, and it doesn't talk about the cans of meat and the sleeping bags and all the rest of that good stuff, but it's supplies. All of those things are the things that you would need to survive if you were to travel the North Pole. Section 3. A tall man was marching ahead with a serious face and a firm step. He was leading the way straight to the north, where no human being had ever been before. He could not be sure that he and his brave companions would ever return. This was Admiral Robert E. Peary. There we, excuse me. There we go. So, what do you think? Press pause. Write down your annotation. Yeah. So, I just put the man's name. I put leader because he is the leader, and I put leader Admiral Perry or Peary. Sorry, Peary. So that's a great annotation there. This is where we are first introduced to this person. Section 4. Mr. Peary was an admiral in the United States Navy, but he had spent many years in these cold areas, and he loved the snow, the ice, and the freezing winds. This is what he says about them. Now that continues into the fifth paragraph. We can just stop and do an annotation. I can't believe he likes these places. Freezing cold, ice, snow, wind blowing, freezing cold temperatures. This is where he likes to go? Jeez, I like going to the beach in the summer. Anywho, press pause and write down your annotation. Go ahead. All right, here's mine. For that section, section 4, I wrote expert in cold places. Yes. Well, this is what he said, Admiral Peary, when he was asked about going to really, really cold, snowy places. More than once I have come back from the great frozen spaces, battered and worn and confused, sometimes injured, telling myself that I had made my last journey there. Somehow it was never many months before the old restless feeling came over me. I began to long for the battles with the ice and strong winds, the handful of odd but faithful Eskimos who had been my friends for years, the silence and the great white lonely north. And back I went time after time until at last my dream of many years came true. What was his dream? I'm asking myself. But meanwhile, before we go on to the next page, you need to hit the pause button, write down your annotations. Do it. Okay, so for that one, I put returned to frozen places repeatedly. Returned to, he went back and back, and he was like, no, I'm done. I'm never going to go there again. I'm going to not battle with it. But then he starts to get restless, and after a while, yes, that's exactly what he does. On to the next page. 6. Admiral Peary's dream was to find the North Pole. He had many friends who wanted to help him make his dream come true. They built a ship for him called the Roosevelt in honor of the man who was then President of the United States. In this, he sailed from New York with the men whom he had selected to go with him. He had stopped along the way to take on board the Eskimos and the dogs that he needed. The Roosevelt had pushed its way as far north as it could go and was now frozen fast in the ice at the edge of the sea cap. Sled loads of food had been carried from the ship and been buried in the snow where Admiral Peary could find it on his way back from the pole. The strongest and most faithful dogs had been harnessed to two sleds. Last of all, the most trusted of his companions had been chosen to go with him. They had left behind the rest of the company, who were there to stay in the Roosevelt until their return. Wow, lots of information there, but we need a short annotation, just a few words to kind of capture everything that we learned from that section. Hit the pause button, write it down. Now, my annotation comes just from the topic sentence. It says there, Admiral Peary's dream was to find the North Pole. I wrote down, wanted to find North Pole. It's not a complete sentence. It doesn't need to be. That's okay. But that is really what we learned on this particular paragraph. That was his goal. That's what he wanted to do. Now, the next section, interestingly enough, is 2 separate paragraphs, but we know that this paragraph here right at the end is a part of the 7th section. That's the way the author organized their work. Let's see what it says. Day after day, Admiral Peary, his 5 companions, and his strong dogs traveled over the ice and snow. At last, they did reach the pole. They were the first people to have been to the North Pole. What do you suppose he found there? Nothing but snow and ice stretching in all directions as far as the eye could see. There was nothing to show where the pole is, but he could tell by his instruments that he was very near where it must be. Well, congratulations, Admiral Peary. Hit the pause button, my friends. You need to write down your last annotation. Pause. Yeah, success. So I wrote down, made it to the North Pole, or you could write arrived at the North Pole. Either one of those would suffice. So there we have it, the story of a brave man indeed, Admiral Peary. Set a goal for himself, had a dream, and then made it come true with a little help from his friends and his dogs. Well, they weren't his dogs. They belonged to someone's dogs, the faithful dogs, the brave dogs. Anyway, well done, my friends. Now, all you need to do is answer the questions, short answer and multiple choice, snap a picture of your work and upload it to Seesaw. And then don't forget to read out your annotations. I have loved hearing your voices as you were reading out these annotations. Your annotations are getting better and better and better. That's why we're practicing them so much. So well done, my friends. I will see you back here tomorrow for Friday. Please continue to be stately as your king and queen and have some fun today. For me, the Ultimate Champion, I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye.